Picture this. You're in a dazzling Dallas ballroom, crystal chandeliers overhead, 200 strangers watching. Your father, Richard Carter, Texas titan of Carter Industries, steps to the microphone. He beams with pride for his sons, then locks eyes with you. "My daughter Emily just didn't have what it takes for real business," he says. The room laughs nervously. Your heart shatters like glass on a Texas highway. That was me, Emily Watson, at his retirement gala. But I wasn't there to break. I carried a silver box, packed with a surprise that would shake his world to its core. Want to know what I gave him? Stay with me, this gets wild. I'm Emily Watson, 34, a lead architect at Harper & Stone in Austin, Texas. I've poured my soul into designing sustainable communities, like the Austin Green Hub, which won the Texas Design Award. But to my father, Richard Carter, I was never enough. He built Carter Industries from a $5,000 loan into a national giant, a true Texas legend. His dream was for my brothers Michael and David to carry his legacy. Me. I was the daughter who chose architecture over his empire. Every milestone, full scholarship to Rice University, youngest partner at my firm, was brushed off as pretty drawings. My mother, Susan, saw my fire before cancer stole her when I was 17. She whispered, "Emily, you build dreams." Her words fueled me. This isn't just my story. It's a revenge born from proving I'm more than my father's blind spot, a fight for my place in this world. Here in Texas, we're raised on grit, family, and standing tall under wide-open skies. But what happens when your own kin don't see your worth? I know that ache. Feeling invisible in a state where pride runs as deep as the Rio Grande. Whether you're in Dallas, Houston, or a small town like Lubbock, you've faced moments where someone doubted your fire. My fight wasn't just against my dad. It was for every Texan who's had to prove they're enough. This story's about turning pain into power, right here in the Lone Star State. Stick with me. You'll see how I turned my hurt into a legacy that shines. If you've ever been overlooked, told you're not enough, or felt the sting of someone's low expectations, this story's for you. Hit that like button if you've fought to prove your worth. It means the world to folks like us. Subscribe and ring the bell for more revenge stories that lift your spirit. Tales of people who turned hurt into triumph. That "Watch Your Sister's Wedding Online" part. It's a deep wound from a family secret that fueled my fire. I'll unpack it soon. Share this with someone in Texas or beyond who needs to know their value isn't up for debate. Drop your story in the comments. Who did you prove wrong? I read every one. Next, I'll take you to that gala where my dad's words cut like a knife. But my silver box changed everything. Don't miss it, stay tuned. I grew up in a sprawling Dallas mansion, the kind you'd expect from a Texas titan like my father, Richard Carter. His company, Carter Industries, turned a $5,000 loan into a manufacturing empire that stretched across the country. To the world, he was a legend, grit, ambition, and a handshake that closed million-dollar deals. But at home, his shadow loomed largest over me, Emily Watson, his only daughter. From as early as I can remember, Dad's world revolved around my brothers, Michael and David. They were his pride, the heirs to his legacy. Me. I was the afterthought, the girl who didn't fit his vision of success. At 10, I'd sit at our polished oak dinner table, listening to Dad grill my brothers about profit margins and supply chains. I'd read his business journals, sneaking them from his study, trying to understand terms like inventory turnover. One night, I worked up the courage to ask, "Dad, what's a cash flow statement?" He chuckled, not unkindly, but it cut deep. "Emily, this ain't for you. Go help your mama in the kitchen." That moment crystallized it. Being a girl meant I wasn't part of his world. It wasn't just words, it was actions. At 12, I poured my heart into a science fair project, a model of a sustainable Texas ranch made from balsa wood and wire. It won first place in Dallas County, A big deal for a kid from Highland Park. Mama was there, clapping like I'd hung the moon. Dad. He was at Michael's football game, cheering for a kid who spent most of it on the bench. I stood on that stage, holding my ribbon, feeling invisible. Every time I tried to step into his world, he pushed me back. "Business is for men," he'd say, not in so many words, but his actions screamed it. My brothers weren't cruel. They just soaked up the attention, never questioning why I was left out. Michael once caught my eye after Dad's dismissal, a flicker of guilt in his gaze, but he never spoke up. I learned early that if I wanted to be seen, I'd have to fight for it, not just in my family, but in a world that echoed Dad's beliefs. That fight started young and it never stopped. My mother, Susan Watson, was the warmth to my father's cold ambition. A former English teacher who traded lecture halls for motherhood. She saw something in me that Dad never did. While he built factories, she nurtured dreams, my dreams. From the time I was 6, I'd spend hours with her, building model towns from cardboard, popsicle sticks, anything we could find. I'd sketch tree houses with solar panels made of foil, or community centers with gardens on the roof. She'd sit cross-legged on the floor, her eyes bright, saying, "Emily, your daddy builds factories, but you build dreams that change lives." Her belief was my anchor. She'd read me stories of architects like Frank Lloyd Wright, weaving tales of how they shaped the world with vision, not just steel. When I was 9, she bought me my first drafting kit, pencils, rulers, graph paper, and we'd spend evenings designing imaginary cities. "Your heart sees what others miss," she'd whisper, tucking me in. Those moments gave me courage to keep going, even when Dad's dismissal stung. When I was 17, breast cancer stole her from me. I can still see her in her final days, frail but fierce, telling me, "Don't let anyone, not even your father, tell you what you can't do." Her death left a void nothing could fill. At her funeral, I stood by her casket, clutching a sketch I'd drawn for her, a library with skylights and green walls. Dad was across the room, talking business with my uncle, already planning how Michael and David would take over Carter Industries. I overheard him say, "At least my boys can carry on the business." It was like I wasn't even there. Mama's faith kept me standing. In her safe deposit box, I later found a letter she'd written. "Emily, your vision will take you further than your father's empire. Keep building." Those words became my lifeline, a reminder that my worth didn't depend on Dad's approval. Susan Watson didn't just give me life. She gave me the strength to fight for my place in a world that tried to push me aside. The pain of being invisible in my own family cut deeper than I can describe. It wasn't just the dinner table rejections or missed science fairs. It was the constant reminder that I didn't belong. One of the hardest moments came at 15, when Mama organized a small exhibit of my architectural sketches at our local Dallas library. I'd spent weeks on those drawings. Parks, community centers, sustainable homes. She invited the whole family, so proud of her girl. Dad didn't show. He was closing a deal with some oil tycoon in Fort Worth. I stood there, surrounded by my work, feeling like a ghost in my own life. The worst blow came years later, when I was 19, a freshman at Rice University. My sister Sarah's wedding was a big Texas affair, all glitz and glamour at a Dallas country club. I wasn't invited, not to the rehearsal dinner, not even to sit with the family. Dad said, "Emily's not part of this." I watched the ceremony online, streaming it from my dorm room, my laptop screen blurring through tears. Seeing my father walk Sarah down the aisle, smiling like the perfect dad, while I was reduced to a virtual guest, it broke something in me. Those moments piled up, each one a brick in a wall between me and my family. Even my brothers, who weren't cruel, never challenged the dynamic. Once, after Dad called my sketches a cute hobby, David patted my shoulder awkwardly and said, "You know how Dad is." It wasn't enough. I started to see it wasn't just Dad. It was a world that expected less of me because I was a woman. But Mama's voice echoed, Build dreams, Emily. So I did. I poured my pain into my work, sketching designs that would prove I was more than an afterthought. That library exhibit, that streamed wedding, they weren't just slights, they were fuel. I swore I'd show them all, not with anger, but with a legacy built on my terms, one that no one could ignore. I refused to let my father's doubts define me. Growing up in Dallas, under the weight of Richard Carter's legacy, I knew I had to carve my own path. So I fought for it. At 18, I earned a full scholarship to Rice University in Houston, one of the top architecture programs in the country. While my brothers Michael and David went to state schools on Dad's dime, I was grinding through late nights, perfecting my designs and acing every course. I graduated top of my class, summa cum laude, with a portfolio that turned heads. My professors saw what Dad didn't, a vision that could reshape communities. After graduation, I could have taken the easy route, a cushy job at Carter Industries, but I wanted to prove myself on my own terms. I moved to Austin and joined Harper & Stone, a respected architecture firm known for sustainable urban development. Starting at the bottom, I worked my way up, pouring my heart into every project. By 34, I became their youngest partner ever, a milestone that felt like a Texas-sized victory. My proudest work was the Austin Green Hub, a mixed-use development with affordable housing, solar panels, and green spaces that brought people together. It wasn't just a building, it was a community, a place where families could thrive without sacrificing beauty or the planet. The project won the Texas Design Award, our state's equivalent of an Oscar for architecture. I stood on that stage in Austin, holding the award, feeling like I'd finally stepped out of Dad's shadow. My designs were featured in Architectural Digest, with headlines calling me a rising star in sustainable design. My salary surpassed my brother's years ago, a quiet fact I never flaunted. Every blueprint, every late-night sketching, was a brick in the legacy I was building. I wasn't just designing buildings. I was proving that a woman could outshine the expectations set for her. In Texas, we're taught to work hard and stand tall, and I did just that. I traveled to Tokyo to consult on a sustainable high-rise, incorporating cultural elements like Zen gardens into modern architecture. I spoke at conferences across the South, from Houston to Atlanta, sharing how sustainable design could transform overlooked neighborhoods. My work wasn't about ego, it was about impact. The Austin Green Hub became a model for other cities, with mayors from Dallas to San Antonio reaching out to replicate it. I mentored young architects, especially women, telling them what my mother once told me: build dreams, not just structures. My career wasn't a fluke. It was a testament to what happens when you refuse to be invisible. I'd walk through my projects, seeing kids playing in parks I designed, families living in homes I envisioned, and feel a pride deeper than any award. This was my empire, built without my father's name or resources, rooted in the Texas grit I'd inherited despite his doubts. Every achievement was a step toward proving I had what it takes, not just to him but to myself. But no matter how high I climbed, my father's indifference was a weight I couldn't shake. Richard Carter, the man who built Carter Industries into a Texas legend, saw my achievements as little more than a hobby. When I told him about my scholarship to Rice, he shrugged and said, "Drawing buildings ain't real business, Emily. You'll see." It stung, but I hoped he'd come around. He didn't. When I graduated top of my class, he sent a curt text: "Nice job. No call, no visit." I invited him to the Texas Design Award ceremony, a black tie event in Austin where I was honored for the Austin Green Hub. I thought maybe this time he'll see me. He canceled last minute, claiming he had to attend Michael's birthday dinner at a Dallas steakhouse, a party for a mid-level deal my brother closed. I stood on that stage, award in hand, scanning the crowd for a face that wasn't there. When Architectural Digest featured me, I mailed him a copy. His response: "Very nice, but it's not like running a company with 500 employees." Every milestone was met with the same dismissive tone, as if my work was a child's drawing pin to the fridge, not a career transforming lives. Even when I out-earned my brothers, he never acknowledged it. Once, at a family Christmas in Dallas, I showed him photos of the Austin Green Hub. Families moving in, kids playing in the park I designed. He glanced at them and said, "Looks pretty, Emily. But real business is about scale, not art." My brothers weren't much better. Michael would give me a half smile, like he felt bad but didn't know how to fix it. David once muttered, "Dad's just old school," as if that excused it. Their silence hurt almost as much as Dad's words. I'd lie awake at night, wondering why my achievements, hard-won, undeniable, weren't enough for him. In Texas, we're taught family is everything, but mine couldn't see me. Dad's world was steel and spreadsheets, and I was building something he couldn't understand. Each dismissal was a reminder. To him, I'd never be more than the daughter who didn't fit his mold. Despite my father's blindness, I found strength in the fire he ignited. My mother's voice never left me. Susan Watson, gone too soon, left me a letter in her safe deposit box that I found after her death. "Emily," it read, "your heart and vision will take you further than your father's empire. Keep building." I clung to those words like a lifeline, reading them on nights when doubt crept in. They reminded me my worth wasn't tied to Dad's approval. In Austin, I found a new family, a group of women architects who became my sisters in spirit. We'd meet at a coffee shop on South Congress, sharing stories of being underestimated in a male-dominated field. They taught me to channel pain into power. One of them, a mentor named Clara, had a saying, "In Texas, we don't just survive, we build something better." That became my mantra. Every time Dad dismissed my work, I sketched harder, designed bolder. The Austin Green Hub wasn't just a project. It was my defiance, proof I could create something lasting without his name. I'd walk through Zilker Park, sketching ideas under live oaks, feeling Mama's belief in me like a warm breeze. My strength wasn't just in my degrees or awards. It was in knowing I was enough. I mentored young women, telling them to hold fast to their dreams, just as Mama did for me. I spoke at a Dallas conference, sharing how sustainable design could heal communities, and saw young architects in the audience light up. That was my legacy, not Carter Industries, but a world made better by my hands. I wasn't fighting for Dad's approval anymore. I was fighting for the girl who'd been told she didn't belong. Every blueprint was a declaration. I am here and I am enough. That strength carried me forward, ready to face the night that would change everything. My father's gala, where I'd show him exactly what I was made of. The night of my father's retirement gala felt like stepping into a Texas-sized reckoning. It was held at the Omni Dallas Hotel, a place dripping with grandeur. Crystal chandeliers casting rainbows across white linen tables, orchids and roses in perfect arrangements, and Carter Industries banners proclaiming 40 years of excellence. 200 guests filled the ballroom. Oil tycoons, tech moguls, and politicians, all there to honor Richard Carter, the man who turned a $5,000 loan into a manufacturing empire. This was his night, a celebration of his legacy, and I was determined to be there, not as his shadow, but as Emily Watson, the architect who'd built her own name. I'd spent weeks preparing, choosing a tailored navy suit with sharp lapels, a nod to my architectural identity but polished enough for Dallas high society. I carried a silver-wrapped box, my gift to Dad, tucked carefully in a tote bag. It wasn't just a present, it was a statement, though I didn't know then how it would change everything. I arrived right on time, slipping past the photographer snapping guests against a branded backdrop. The cocktail hour was in full swing, champagne flutes clinking, laughter echoing like a West Texas wind. But the greetings I got were a reminder of my place. Dad's cousin Bernard, martini in hand, said, "Emily, still doing that architecture thing? Cute hobby." A board member patted my shoulder, murmuring, "Your father must be proud," but his tone said otherwise. I spotted my brothers, Michael and David, across the room with their wives, Vanessa and Rebecca. We exchanged shallow pleasantries. Nice dress, how's your vacation? Careful to avoid anything real. Dad's over there with some Japanese investors, Michael said, nodding toward the bar. You should say hi before things kick off. I approached Dad, his broad frame commanding the corner like a longhorn bull. He broke away from his conversation, offering a stiff half-hug. Emily, you made it, he said, eyes scanning my suit. Finally dressing like a professional. I ignored the jab, forcing a smile. Congratulations on your retirement, Dad. He nodded, already looking past me. We'll talk later. Your brothers put together quite an evening. That was it, dismissed in seconds. The seating chart drove the point home. Michael and David sat at the head table, flanking Dad with their wives, while I was relegated to table 19, surrounded by distant cousins and mid-level employees I barely knew. My tote bag, with that silver box inside, sat by my chair as servers brought out lobster bisque I couldn't taste past the knot in my throat. The program started after the main course, a meal I barely touched. A massive video screen lowered, lights dimmed, and a tribute montage began. It was all Dad, breaking ground on his first factory, shaking hands with governors, accepting business awards. The family section was a gut punch. Dad coaching Michael and David in Little League, standing proud at their college graduations, cutting ribbons at new Carter facilities. I appeared once, in a faded photo from when I was 10, before Mama got sick. My entire career, my awards, my buildings, my life erased. It was like I'd stopped existing the moment I chose my own path. The stage was set, and I had no idea how this night would break me open. The gala's energy shifted when the speeches began, like a storm rolling in over the Texas plains. Colleagues took the podium first, praising Dad's business acumen, his relentless drive, his family values. The CFO nodded toward my brothers, saying, Richard's dedication to the next generation is his true legacy. Michael and David went next, delivering a joint speech that painted Dad as their mentor, their hero. Everything we know about business we learned from Dad, Michael said, voice steady. His legacy lives on through the values he's instilled in us, David added, his eyes on the crowd. The room erupted in applause, but I sat frozen, my hands gripping the table. Then Dad took the stage, all 6 feet of him, silver hair gleaming under the chandeliers. He straightened his tie, a gesture I knew from countless family dinners, a signal he was about to say something big. At 67, he still commanded the room like a general. 40 years, he began, his voice booming. 40 years of building something from nothing, from a warehouse in Cleveland to offices in 12 countries. He recounted challenges overcome, risks that paid off, employees who'd stood by him. The crowd hung on every word, nodding, smiling, seeing the legend I'd grown up under. Then his tone softened, and I felt a flicker of hope. Maybe he'd mention me, even just a nod to my work. Instead, he said, People ask what I'm most proud of after 4 decades. That's easy, my sons Michael and David. He gestured to them, his face warm with pride. They've proven they have what it takes to carry Carter Industries forward. Sacrifice, strategy, leadership. The crowd murmured approval. Then his eyes found me, sitting at table 19, and the air changed. Unlike my daughter Emily, he continued, his voice dropping, who chose a different path. I used to worry about her, but I've accepted she just wasn't cut out for real business. A ripple of awkward laughter spread through the room, like tumbleweeds skittering across a desert. Faces turned to me, some pitying, some embarrassed, some avoiding my gaze altogether. At the head table, Michael stared at his plate, his jaw tight. David shifted, his hands clenching, but neither said a word. The chandelier light felt like a spotlight, burning through my chest. My face flushed, not with shame, but with a rage I'd buried for years. Dad kept talking, detailing my brother's triumphs. Michael's European expansion, David's supply chain innovations, their leadership during tough times. 5 minutes of praise for them. Not a single word more for me. The room gave him a standing ovation, businessmen and women rising to salute the great Richard Carter and his chosen heirs. I stayed seated, my nails digging into my palms, leaving crescent marks. The pain wasn't just in his words. It was in the truth they laid bare. To him I was invisible, a footnote in his story. Every dismissal, every missed moment. My science fair, my graduation, my sister's wedding I watched online, came rushing back. I'd spent my life trying to prove I belonged, but in that moment, I realized he'd never see me. Not unless I forced him to. My hand found the silver box in my tote bag, and something inside me shifted. This wasn't the end of my story. It was the beginning of my fight. In that moment, with the ballroom's applause ringing in my ears, something snapped inside me. I wasn't going to sit there, shrinking under my father's words, letting his version of me win. I stood, smoothing my navy suit, and pulled the silver-wrapped box from my tote bag. My heart pounded like a Texas thunderstorm, but my steps were steady as I walked toward the stage. The click of my heels on the polished floor cut through the fading cheers, drawing eyes from every corner of the room. I felt 200 gazes on me, a mix of curiosity and unease, but I didn't falter. Years of presenting designs to skeptical clients had taught me to wear confidence like armor, even when I was breaking inside. My brothers noticed first. Michael half rose from his seat, his face torn between concern and confusion. David's hand shot out, gently holding him back, as if sensing what was coming. I climbed the 3 steps to the stage, my eyes locked on Dad. He stood at the podium, microphone still in hand, accepting handshakes from executives. His triumphant smile faltered when he saw me, replaced by a flicker of annoyance, then alarm. "Elizabeth," he said, voice low but caught by the mic. "This isn't the time." I stopped a foot from him, close enough to see the creases in his tailored suit, the tension in his jaw. "Congratulations on your retirement, Dad," I said, my voice calm but firm, carrying across the silent ballroom. "I brought you something." I held out the silver box, its navy ribbon gleaming under the lights. The label read, "From your biggest failure." He didn't take it, his eyes narrowing. "This isn't the time for gifts, Emily," he said, louder now, a warning in his tone. "I think it's exactly the right time," I replied, holding his gaze. "Open it when I'm gone." I placed the box in his hands, feeling its weight transfer, and turned away before he could respond. The room was a vacuum, every breath held as I walked off the stage. I moved deliberately, head high, shoulders back, channeling every ounce of strength I'd built over years of being overlooked. Past the head table where Michael and David sat frozen, their wives staring wide-eyed. Past the executives, their shocked faces blurring together. Past cousins and family friends who suddenly found their dessert plates fascinating. Through the grand double doors into the hotel lobby, where the dim lighting felt like a mercy. I didn't stop until I reached my car in the parking garage. Only then did my armor crack. Tears burned my eyes, spilling over as I fumbled with my keys. I collapsed into the driver's seat, sobs tearing through me. Years of rejection, of hoping for his approval, of being told I wasn't enough. I gripped the steering wheel, pressing my forehead against its cool surface, trying to steady my breath. That box held everything I was. My Rice University diploma, earned with blood and sweat. My architecture license, proof of my expertise. My Texas Design Award medal, gleaming with my triumph. Financial statements showing I out-earned my brothers. Press clippings about the Austin Green Hub, my legacy in concrete and glass. A letter from Mama, her elegant handwriting declaring her pride in my determination. A USB drive with a video titled "What It Takes," chronicling my career. And one final piece. A photo from my sister Sarah's wedding, the one I wasn't invited to, the one I watched online from my dorm room alone. That photo was my wound, my proof of every time he'd left me out. As I drove away, I felt hollow. Not triumphant, not remorseful, just empty. My phone buzzed with texts from Michael. What was in the box? Then, "Are you okay?" David wrote. "Dad looks shaken." I silenced it and kept driving, knowing I just crossed a line I could never uncross. I challenged Richard Carter, the untouchable patriarch, in front of his world. That silver box wasn't just a gift. It was my truth laid bare for him to face. I didn't know then what he'd do with it, but I knew I'd finally made him see me, whether he wanted to or not. As I drove away from the Omni Dallas Hotel, leaving that silver box in my father's hands, the weight of what I'd done settled over me like a Texas dust storm. I'd challenged Richard Carter, the unyielding patriarch, in front of his world. 200 guests, his empire's elite. But I couldn't have predicted how deeply that box would shake him. Back in the ballroom, Dad stood frozen at the podium, clutching my gift as the applause for his speech faded into an uneasy hush. The microphone, still live, caught his uneven breaths, a sound that betrayed the cracks in his armor. He set the box down, hands trembling, and peeled back the silver wrapping. One by one, he pulled out its contents. My Rice University diploma, earned through sleepless nights. My architecture license, a testament to my expertise. My Texas Design Award medal, glinting with hard-won pride. Financial statements proving I'd out-earned my brothers. Press clippings about the Austin Green Hub, my vision in concrete and glass. A USB drive labeled "What It Takes," holding a video of my career. And a photo from my sister Sarah's wedding, the one I'd watched online, excluded from my own family. But it was my mother's letter that stopped him cold. Susan's elegant handwriting, preserved in ink, read, "Emily, I'm so proud of your determination. Your vision will outshine any empire." Witnesses later told me his face changed, eyes welling, jaw tightening as he read her words. He folded the letter carefully, tucking it into his jacket, and sat heavily in his chair, ignoring the executives trying to shake his hand. The gala continued, but Dad was elsewhere, staring at the box like it held a ghost. My brother Michael texted me an hour later. "Dad's not talking. He's just sitting there with your stuff." David followed. "What was in that box, Emily?" "He looks like he saw Mama." The next day, Dad canceled his planned golf trip to Hill Country, a retreat he'd bragged about for weeks. He stopped taking board calls, shut himself in his home office, and played my career video on repeat. Michael visited him and found him surrounded by my clippings, my award resting on his desk like a relic. "He's not himself," Michael said. "He keeps reading Mama's letter." Dad's routine unraveled. He'd built Carter Industries on discipline, rising at 5 a.m. to review reports, but now he was late to meetings, distracted. His usual command replaced by a quiet unease. A family friend saw him at a Dallas diner, alone, staring at a coffee he didn't drink. My video paused on his tablet. He began asking questions about my projects, my awards, details he'd ignored for years. To an old colleague, he admitted, "I didn't know she'd done all this." The man who dismissed my work as pretty drawings was unraveling, forced to face a truth he'd buried. His daughter wasn't a failure. She was a force. My box hadn't just embarrassed him. It had cracked open a mirror, showing him his own flaws. He couldn't unsee it. Mama's pride, my achievements, the daughter he'd overlooked. That night at the gala, as he held my truth, Richard Carter began to break. Not in defeat, but in the slow, painful dawn of realization. Dad's unraveling wasn't just a moment. It was the start of a transformation I never thought possible. The man who'd built Carter Industries on steel and stubbornness didn't just apologize. He acted. A week after the gala, I got an email from him, simple but seismic. I was wrong, Emily. Can we talk? I stared at it for hours, unsure if I could trust it. But Dad didn't stop there. He announced a new division at Carter Industries, green architecture, inspired by my work on the Austin Green Hub. It wasn't a publicity stunt. He threw real resources behind it, hiring sustainability experts and redirecting millions from traditional manufacturing. To my shock, he enrolled in a sustainable design workshop in Austin, showing up with a notebook like a freshman, scribbling about solar panels and geothermal systems. My brothers were floored. Michael called me, half laughing, half stunned. "Dad's reading about wind turbines." "Who is this guy?" David admitted. "He's asking us what you'd think of his ideas." This was Richard Carter, a man who'd never asked anyone's opinion, let alone mine. He started studying my projects, not just skimming but digging in, calling my firm to request reports on the Austin Green Hub, even visiting the site unannounced. A groundskeeper told me he saw Dad walking the park I designed, lingering by a playground where kids laughed, muttering, "She did this." He reached out to my mentors, asking about my methods, my impact. Clara, my architect friend, said he listened for an hour, taking notes, his pride swallowed. Dad's transformation wasn't perfect. He fumbled, sometimes slipping into old habits, like assuming Michael should lead the new division. But when I pushed back, he paused, nodded, and said, "You're right. What would you do?" That question, small as it seemed, was a revolution. He began speaking about me differently, not as my daughter who does architecture, but as Emily Watson, the architect changing how we build communities. At a Dallas business luncheon, he brought up my Texas Design Award unprompted, his voice thick with something new, pride. My brothers noticed the shift too. David confided, "He's hard on himself, Emily. He knows he messed up." The change wasn't just professional. Dad started calling not about business but to ask about my life, my Tokyo project, my weekend hikes in hill country. He sent a photo of Mama's old sketchbook, found in storage, with a note. "She'd be proud of you." The man who'd dismissed me for decades was learning to see me, not as a failure, but as his daughter, his equal. It was messy, imperfect, but real. The path to reconciliation wasn't a straight Texas highway. It was a winding back road, full of hesitation and hope. A month after the gala, I agreed to meet Dad at a coffee shop by Lady Bird Lake in Austin. I arrived first, gripping my iced tea, nerves jangling like spurs. When he walked in, he looked different. Grayer, softer, his usual commanding stride replaced by something humbler. He sat across from me, hands folded, and said, "Emily, I failed you." His voice cracked, raw and unguarded. "Your mama warned me years ago I was treating you different because you were a girl. I didn't listen. I was wrong." Those words hit harder than his gala speech. He admitted missing my science fair, my graduation, even Sarah's wedding where I was sidelined. "I saw you as less," he said, eyes downcast. "I don't know how to fix it, but I want to try." He proposed I lead a project, the Susan Watson Community Center in Lubbock, Mama's hometown. It would focus on education, arts, and sustainability, a tribute to her and a chance for us to work together. I didn't commit right away. Trust was a bridge we'd have to rebuild. But I agreed to review the plans, curious despite myself. Over weeks, we collaborated, not as father and daughter, but as equals. He deferred to my expertise, asking about green roofs and water recycling, listening when I pushed for bolder designs. It wasn't perfect. Sometimes he'd interrupt, old habits creeping in, but he'd catch himself, apologize, and try again. The center took shape, a place where kids could learn and families could gather, rooted in Mama's love for community. Our family started shifting too. At a dinner at Michael's house in Fort Worth, my brothers asked about my work. Genuinely curious. David admitted, "We should have spoken up sooner, Emily." Dad sought my advice on Carter Industries' green initiatives, saying, "You see things we don't." Months later, at the center's groundbreaking, I spoke to a crowd in Lubbock. "This is about second chances and seeing what's possible." Dad stood nearby, his eyes shining with pride I'd never seen before. After, he gave me a small wooden model I'd built at 7, a ranch Mama had saved. "You were always enough," he said. It wasn't a full repair, but it was a start, a foundation we could build on. The Susan Watson Community Center in Lubbock became my heart's work, a tribute to Mama and a symbol of what we could build when we saw each other clearly. I poured everything into its design. Solar panels to harness Texas sunlight, green roofs blooming with native plants, and open spaces where kids could learn and families could connect. It wasn't just a building. It was a promise of hope, rooted in Mama's belief that everyone deserves a place to thrive. Dad gave me full control, a trust one never thought I'd earn from him. I pushed for bold choices like rainwater harvesting and art studios for local youth, making it a beacon of sustainability and community. Working with him wasn't always smooth. He'd question costs, old habits creeping in, but he listened when I explained how every dollar invested would pay off and lives changed. At the groundbreaking ceremony, I stood on a Lubbock field, the West Texas wind at my back, and spoke to a crowd of neighbors, officials, and my family. "This center is about second chances," I said, "about seeing potential where others see limits." Dad handed me a small wooden model I'd built at 7, a ranch with foil solar panels Mama had saved. His voice was quiet, almost reverent. "You were always ahead of your time, Emily." That moment felt like a cornerstone laid, not just for the center but for us. The ripples of that silver box didn't stop with Dad. They reshaped our family. At a dinner at Michael's house in Fort Worth, the air felt different, lighter. My brothers didn't just tolerate my presence. They sought my thoughts. Michael asked about my Tokyo project, genuinely curious about sustainable high-rises. David leaned in, wanting details on the community center's green tech, admitting, "We should have backed you sooner, Emily." Their wives nodded, sharing stories of their own struggles against doubt. Dad was quieter than usual, but when he spoke, it was to ask my opinion on Carter Industries' green division. "Your outside perspective is what we need," he said, a far cry from the man who'd called my work pretty drawings. Later, Michael pulled me aside, his voice low. "Dad's different because of you. He bragged about your award at a board meeting. I learned he'd even praised me at Sarah's wedding years ago, a moment I'd missed while streaming it online alone." Those words, though late, stitched something broken in me. Our family wasn't perfect. Old wounds lingered and trust took time, but we were building something new. Dad's pride at the groundbreaking, Michael's honesty, David's respect. It was a foundation stronger than any I'd designed, proof that even fractured families can heal when truth leads the way. In Texas, we know foundations matter. Whether it's a building or a family, what you build on defines what stands. That silver box wasn't just a challenge to my dad. It was my declaration that I was enough. It taught me that your worth isn't tied to someone else's blind spots, not even those of the people you love most. I turned pain into purpose, crafting a legacy of community and connection, from the Austin Green Hub to the Susan Watson Community Center. You can do the same. Whatever doubts you face, whatever voices say you're less, build anyway, brick by brick, dream by dream. In the Lone Star State, we don't just endure. We create something lasting. My story isn't about revenge. It's about rising, proving that who you are is more than enough. This story isn't just about a silver box or a gala showdown. It's about finding your worth when others can't see it. In Texas, we're taught to build strong foundations, whether it's a home, a family, or a life. I learned that my value didn't depend on my father's approval, but on the dreams I dared to build. From the pain of watching my sister's wedding online to the triumph of the Susan Watson Community Center, I turned rejection into resilience. You can too. No matter who doubts you, family, friends, or the world, your heart knows what you're capable of. Take that hurt, that anger, and shape it into something extraordinary. In the Lone Star State, we don't just survive. We create legacies that outlast the storms. My journey wasn't about revenge. It was about rising above, proving I was enough. Yours can be too. Build your foundation brick by brick, and let it stand as a testament to who you are. Because in the end, the only approval you need is your own. If this story stirred something in you, hit that like button. It's a nod to everyone who's fought to be seen. Have you ever had to prove someone wrong to show you're more than their doubts? Drop your story in the comments. I read every one, and your voice matters. Subscribe and ring the bell for more tales of grit and triumph. Stories that remind us we're stronger than our scars. Share this with someone in Texas or beyond who needs to hear they're enough, whether they're in Dallas, Lubbock, or halfway across the globe. That moment I watched Sarah's wedding online, alone, fueled my fire. Maybe this story will light yours. Next week, I'm diving into how I designed the Susan Watson Community Center and a family secret that changed everything. Don't miss it. Hit that bell to stay in the loop. Let's keep building not just buildings but lives that shine. Your story, your strength, your legacy. Start sharing it now. Together we'll show the world what we're made of, one truth at a time.